Is there anything beyond? Of course, yes. Of course, yes. That's the only question. That's the fundamental question. The only one that actually matters. Is there anything beyond this reality that we can see as if it were it all, or this is just the surface and there is anything deeper, beyond, farther than that, richer and more profound? That might be the only thing interesting in our experience, in our reality, in our life. And it's a very prescient question, which has been facing the humanity for, well, since always, since forever, since the beginning of time, since the beginning of history. But the answer is obviously yes. There is something beyond this surface. And it's just that yes is very uncomfortable. And we keep on circling around this answer for forever without wanting to stare it in the eyes and say, okay, of course, this is just a scenario. There are many ways of approaching this. Recently, Matrix. Well, recently, it's more than 20 years ago. You start to feeling old when you see that 1999 was recently. But it isn't. But it is all around this about this question, about it is real, what we can see. Is this the full reality, or this is just something built, something artificial, something which is hiding layers of depth, and we only see the surface? So that now part of our collective mind is taking the red pill. You want to see what is inside. It happened very similar to Truman in his show, which was all a show. It was just something artificial, constructed, in order to fool someone and to make it believe that it was all for real, and it was all, but it's just some studios. And if you touch what seems the limit, and you realize that, okay, this is not all, there is something beyond this limit, you realize that it was not all, and it was something beyond. So Truman, had this uncomfortable situation. But, sometimes I like to think that life and truth are orthogonal, and orthogonal is a very fancy word to sound smart, to saying that it has nothing to do with that. Life and truth, there are different things. You can live your life very easily, and evolution doesn't optimize towards truth. But truth is something else. It's something that you do not need truth for living, for getting food, for getting a mate and reproduce. You can simply optimize towards the goal. It has nothing to do with truth. And so Truman could have go on with his life and do not worry about that. What is What is beyond that screen, beyond that structure that looks like the starry night, like looks like the horizon, but it's just the limits of the studio. Don't think about it, and just go on. And you can, if you want to. Why we don't want to answer this question? It's scary. It's like staring into the abyss and see, oh my God, the bottom is so deep. It's so deep, the bottom, that, oof, I don't want to look into that. It's scary. It's like when you face a very depth cliff, that feeling of vertigo. You don't want to hold it. But I think something that a good idea to understand this fear is the void. Void is, as far as I understood, could be taken as the root of all of fears. I've discussed this quite a few times with my eldest daughter, which is just 6 years old. But we try to figure out why we are afraid of some things, where the scare comes from, what is the root of it. Maybe if we are scared of mirrors or darkness or silence or whatever, we avoid to be silent because it gets uncomfortable. We avoid to be dark because you feel threatened. You want to avoid mirrors because they're like mysterious and depth. And I try to come up with a more profound explanation. Just for me, but as well for her, if we are able to fight these fears and to dissolve them. And most of the times, I think the best explanation for all these fears, for the root of the fear, is emptiness, is void. Because it's very scary. When we fear death, we do not fear death itself. We fear the emptiness of nothing more, or everything stop. Nothing's next. Nothing is next. It's just the end of it all, and later on, there's nothing. So the nothing is okay because you die. Maybe you don't know. It could be interesting or whatever, but how is dying? You could be even curious about that, but what's next? What is the thing after? The scary thing is that it is nothing. Here in Spain, Miguel de Unamuno is one of our flagship philosophers. He wanted to be, one of his life motifs, one of his main topics was about immortality, somehow or another. Extending your identity, yourself beyond time and space. Your ideas, your mind, be able to go from one person, from yourself to another person, to many people. Your ideas spreading across the country, because your ideas, how else would you have been thinking otherwise? No, your opinion, you think is the correct one, is the one you want to propagate into the universe, not only in space but as well in time. And you want your ideas to be permanent, your identity, your consciousness to be permanent, and we all want to do that, to be permanent. Just for avoiding the emptiness of not being anymore, for not being any longer. So the emptiness is what is behind the fear of death. The emptiness is what is inside the mirror that it feels scary. Because you look yourself and what is nothing behind you? What if there's nothing inside of you? That emptiness is very uncomfortable. And one has to do this fear of emptiness with avoiding the answer that we all somehow deeply know that it's yes to the question of is it anything beyond? And I think it has to do with the idea of what is beyond is just a complete and mutable totality of the universe. If we go beyond the surface and see the universe, we can think of the universe as something beyond time and space. Something like a totality of the universe, all of the vocabulary and the possibilities, the chances, the possible events, the possible options, everything in the universe is already present, is already real, is already actual. Every single possibility in the universe is already materialized. And after that is nothing. If the universe is already complete and contains all the possibilities, all of the moments, there's nothing ahead. There's no narrative for our mind to stick to it. The very same idea when we are meditating and we try to escape our mind, our thinking, our thoughts, our internal monologue. It's just our ego, ourself, clutching to the narrative of before, now, and then, having a story to tell. Because on the other side is emptiness, vast emptiness of the completeness of the current moment, of the universal instant, which is now. We don't want that peace. We cannot release ourselves, surrender to that eternal moment of everything is done and everything is perfect and everything is possible and it has already happened right in the tips of your fingers. Because after that is nothing. That nothing is scary. Another conversation that sometimes I have with my daughter, with my eldest daughter, is that what is Batman without Joker? There's no story. What is the good without evil? Okay, I'm Batman. This is a new day in my life. Cooking something with Alfred. Nothing fancy. Already finished the day. So that's all. The end. That's not a story. It allows no space, no room for narrative. There is no duality between something and the opposite, between before and after, between darkness and light, between what can be done and what it is actually done. It is no duality. It is just emptiness. But when Batman is fighting the Joker, he wants to overcome the Joker, he wants to absorb the Joker, he wants to be everything. but the very same moment that it's able to get that victory, that final victory, that, okay, finally, everything's solved, it's scary because then what? Nothing else. Oof, it's too much. And that cliff, that vertigo is what we face, and we turn the face because it's too much. Well, it's not too much. Some people want to do that. We do the same with planning. With planning, okay, we need to do something very, we need to achieve something, to build something great. So let's build a plan instead of let's do it now. We want to do something, we want to achieve something. Why not becoming that right now? Instead, we stick to the plan because it provides comfort and allows us to defer things in time and getting this sense of movement, of continuity, of progress, of hope that at some point we will achieve that. But what if we're already there? And that's the thing with Zen Buddhism, Zen philosophy. Sudden awakening. Instead of going through numerous incarnations, trying to refine, to accumulate good karma in that chain of causalities that represent the karma. Let's go. We only need 100 more lifetimes in order to refine, to be ready for that. And Zen says something like shouting, "Peanuts!" And you are there. Sudden awaken. You feel the moment. You know that everything here, right now, is complete. Is universal, is eternal. That is the power of Zen. But many people got very uncomfortable with that. I'm not everyone but me, but there is something in our psyche that tries to refuse that, tries to avoid that. Due to Krishnamurti famously said that truth is a pathless land. Pathless, so scary. You do not need to go anywhere. You're already that. You're already there. You're already treading this territory. But you need the path, you need the illusion of the way, of the progress, of the advancement, of the movement. But truth is a pathless land. Everything's there. There is no before and after. There is no now and then, here and there. Every single moment, every single place is universal. There are more emptiness out there. We keep on destroying these concepts that provides us safety, that provides us comfort. Time, space, matter. Einstein said that matter is just energy. What if there is no matter? We think that things are tangible and they're material. We can touch them, but you know that you can't, because when you touch something, you're only feeling the sensation of the repulsion of the electrons of the something else that you meant to touch, repelling your own electrons that you never touch. It feels material, but it's not. You feel that touch something, but you're only feeling the interaction long distance. Magnetic, electrostatic, electromagnetic interaction of repulsion, you do not actually touch. But it goes deeper, Because, okay, we know that, the atom is mostly empty space, and you look into that, there is a tiny place in the middle, what we call the nucleus, where, okay, there is the matter, there is the thing that you can touch. But, you can go closer to it because it's nuclear force, is a shorter range, but you cannot touch it there. Moreover, there's no protons. And the proton is just a mental idea to encapsulate the concept of three quarks placed together. And we once again feel safe. Okay, but there is the quark. Even if it is a tiny thing, we can touch it. But no, because most of the matter of the quark is kinetic energy. How kinetic energy? You can feel energy like matter? Yeah, because most of the things are energy related to the movement between gluons interacting among quarks. Okay, what is this? Well, at least there is the rest mass of the quark. Okay. So there's something of matter that we can touch, that it is tangible. And then you start to think about that mass only representing interactions with the Higgs field, and say, so that corner of the material world that I thought it was safe, it is just interactions with the Higgs field, which is everywhere around, something not zero because of yes. There's nothing. You can think, okay, there are just strings vibrating, but a string made of what vibrating into where, in what environment? There's nothing up there. They're only energy. They're only energy crystallized as matter that we can see from. It is like an artifact of perspective that we can see that's matter, but it's nothing. It's just energy. It's just something we interact with, but there's nothing to touch. There's nothing material, actually. Kant explained it very well. Immanuel Kant, the philosopher. And it connects with matrix, with this virtual thing, with this virtual feeling. Things that you look into it are some kind simulated. They're happening in your mind. It feels like a dream. A dream feels like reality, but it is subjectively undistinguishable from reality. So, the famous trick of the lucid dreamers, of the lucid dreamers, right now this could be a dream. How could you tell it isn't? How could you tell the difference? So Immanuel Kant does this and say, okay, we cannot see anything beyond our mind. So there are two things. It's the noumenas and the phenomena. The noumena and the phenomena. Phenomena is what happens in your mind. And noumena is the actual things which are separated from you. And you have no access to that. You have no direct experience of the external. You only have direct experience of the internal. If there is something internal. You see a photon comes into your retina, and that's the only thing you can see. You do not see the object reflecting the photon. You do not see the source of light. You only feel the thing in the retina exciting your nervous system and going back to the back of your head. But even more, you do not feel your own retina. You only have access to the experience of the image that the brain builds in the back of your brain, and say, okay, what is actually where I'm experienced. I have no idea of what is happening in my eyes. I only have idea of what I'm experiencing in my mind. So that is how we separated are we from the noumena, from the actual things. And the only access that we have is to our mind, or even deeper, to our consciousness, our awareness of being, thinking about that. Even deeper. This is my hand, but okay, who is the owner of the hand? That is a classical Zen koan, or classical Zen torture of the mind, trying to figure out which part is you and which part is of your ownership. So okay, but I'm not the hand, but okay, but I'm starting my shoulder. This is my arm. I'm behind the shoulder inside. It's me. Okay, I say okay, but I have a shoulder. I have eyes. I have a brain. Who has the brain? But I'm my brain. But well, I'm not my brain. I have a cortex, which I use to think, but I'm not my cortex. I'm not even my brain. I'm not even my brain. But which part of the brain are you? So that is that reduction of limits to what is you and what is not you. What is your access to the world and what is the external world where you have no access. You are not the world. What is your consciousness inside? Is inside your brain? It's not. Which part of your brain? It's arbitrary. You can say that you have a cortex and therefore you are not your brain. So who's watching? So what is real? What is external? It's all more plastic that we want to assume. The reality is not that hard as we meant to have it. And that is very well explained by these concepts of the phenomena, and connects to Einstein and the previous revisions of the concepts of time and space that have been revisited many times across history. And every time we get to a new concept of time and space, we say, okay, but this is the last one, but had been a few last times before about our definitely final, ultimate conception of time and space. And what it reveals to me, the way I understand, the way I accept, is that they're just, once more, artifacts of perspective, time and space. That's the reason why there's no causality, because causality, it takes a very strong assumption, and means that something happens before something else. The effect precedes the cause precedes the effect, and assumes there is an ordering of time, there is a flow of time, there's at least time, and we can think about these artifacts of perspective, arbitrary, evolving, not setting up in stone. These concepts of time and space are just the phenomena, but had nothing to do with noumena. We don't know out there if there is time and space. They're just useful models in our mind for us to reason about the world, about how we model the things, the feedback that we have in our retinas, about how we interact with whatever it is out there. They're just useful models, useful concepts, but we do not have idea about what is actually out there. If there is time and space, it's just mental constructs. Plato does interesting reflections about this. the surface for him is definitely well stated, well described in the powerful myth of the cavern, and say, okay, we're just watching shadows casting to the wall, and we have no idea about the outer world. There is a 2D perception that we have out of a 3D world out there, full of light, and if we stare at the light, it burns our eyes. We are not used to that vastness, to that depth, that many dimensions. It's too big. And even if we are able to to accommodate that and try to go back and say, hey guys, you know what is out there? You are treated as a crazy because people are refusing to release their chains because, yeah, that's what it is. People refuse. People are afraid of releasing their chains and see out there, okay, you bloody crazy guy. There's nothing that else than the world where you trying to convince us, you crazy man. There is something out there. And he has Plato. Well, I cannot. Who can distill the think and the depth of Plato's thought? But he has the ideas of the ideal world, of the ideal forms, and there is a triangle out there in the noumena. There is an ideal triangle that is immutable. It is indestructible. It is everywhere and nowhere and forever. For every moment, it's forever, and it keeps being represented and particularized in local places, like a few points that you can tangle. Okay, this makes a triangle, but triangle is they do not make a triangle. You can think about the ideal form projecting into this tangible world and say, okay, here we got a triangle, but it's just a representation of the ideal triangle, and in a particular place, in a particular shape, in a particular set of objects and points of reference. But the idea of the triangle is unlimited, is immutable, is out there, untouchable, but real, but actual. And not only the Platonic world of ideal shapes is what it is out there. I think it's much more life that we want to acknowledge. And that is what we do when we stare another person into the eyes and say, you know it all. It's all just a decorate, it's just all a scenario, but it's something more profound. And we are connected beyond the surface, in a deeper world, in a deeper reality, beyond time and space, beyond the causality of these things that we call reality, which is just the surface. And we look for that connection. But there is something preventing us from that. And there's another duality for this. There is the duality between intellect and consciousness, about thought and awareness, about reason and intuition. The left and right side of the brain. It is like a photon has two natures overlapping to the same thing. It's a particle and a wave at the same time. but not simultaneously. That mysterious of the duality of particle and wave for the photons and for every other particle, and somehow analogous for the mind with thought and awareness. And thought keep us bounded to the surface of this reality, unlike awareness, which enable us to think to behave like an antenna that is able to perceive clarity beyond reasoning. Sometimes you stop thinking about something and you suddenly realize that it is very clear. That clarity, most of the times I feel that it comes from the lack of thought. It's somehow retard-maxing with right now it's quite popular, this retard-maxing thing with this guy. Out there in YouTube, there's a retard-maxing. This is just then repurposed as modern things. It's just do not think, just be, just do it, just reflect your clarity in your actions. Nothing else. Go with the flow, with the Tao, Wu way. No action, no thinking. Harmonize with the universe. Perceives like this antenna when you suppress your thought and put it aside, and you say, okay, consciousness is able to be in connection, in harmony with the world. You can think of the disruption field of Steve Jobs. Sometimes people reported that Steve Jobs had, when you were around him, you felt like a disruption field around him. If he told you, hey guy, you're not going to need 3 years to build this Gorilla Glass. We're going to do it in 3 weeks. And stare you into the eyes and say, we will do it. And suddenly it happens. Which seemed impossible, but around him, things became possible. It's like a disruption field. And it's not because of superpowers, it's because if you enable this way of thinking, of not thinking, and say, okay, this is in harmony with the world, this is in harmony with the universe, there is a stronger way of looking at reality which gives shapes to this particular reality in a particular way, which seemed impossible. But just because your mind was thinking it was. And suddenly it happens. It is not just you imposing your will on the universe. It is your harmonizing with the outer thing. It's you harmonizing with the universal flow of the Tao, the universal flow of the universal consciousness. And say, okay, it is like this. Because it is not unidirectional. If there is no limitation, if no separation between you and external, there is no self and circumstances, there is no active and passive, there is no more this duality of the separation between the source, the cause, and the effect. You are part of it. You're part of the effect and the cause. So what is beyond? Well, one more thing about this is how you suppress mind. David Goggins does it all the time. Physical exhaustion. You cannot do heavy computations by heart and in your mind mentally when you are running the second half of the marathon. Your mind is somehow, your thought is somehow turned off. So your awareness, your consciousness dominates and flourishes, and you see something else different. You get the runner's high, and that feeling of being one with the universe, of being embraced by it all, to ego dissolution when you're running. It comes just from physical exhaustion, which puts your mental thinking patterns into second plane in the background, so your consciousness and awareness dominates and feels more liberated. It happens the same with drugs. Drugs disable some kind of thinking, usual thinking modes. They put them in the background as well. So consciousness, awareness dominates, and you get this feeling of clarity, of being one with the universe, not being separate. Being able to download knowledge from somewhere else, because you are more in tune with the universal consciousness. Because your mind is not, because your thinking is not in the way. It's not in the middle. What David Goggins does with physical exhaustion as well is trying to avoid this thinking of you're already there. He is already perfect, but he cannot have it. He wants to think that I'm not in his mind, but using this as a thought experiment, I figure out that I could think about him refusing to be there, refusing to be perfect, and in order to avoid the emptiness, avoid his trauma, he needs to create the narrative of running 100 kilometers farther, or doing 3 million push-ups more, or pull-ups, 3 million more, and just sticking to the narrative, just to avoid the void, to avoid the emptiness that comes after saying, okay, I'm done. Hermetic thought revolves very nicely about this. The universe is mind, and mind is all. Everything is mind. Resonates with the no matter of Einstein, with the no time and or space of Immanuel Kant, the Platonic universe, the Platonic shapes of Plato. There's outside only mind, an immutable mind. This mind comprises all of the possibilities. Outside time and space, God sits in his chair and stares at the universe and smokes a cigar in the meantime and say, okay, the universe already happened. It's everything there. Couldn't be otherwise. Not the religion thing about God as an authoritative, role, or as like a personified thing. It's just God is the totality of the universe, all of the instants, all of the places. Every single time the death has a thermical death, or the universe reaches the big crunch again for the nth time, because every possibility that happened has already happened. that is the universe beyond time and space, and we cannot explain it because Gödel doesn't allow to, because the computational irreducibility principle of this guy, I forget his name, this English guy, the author of the Rule 33. Maybe it comes to my mind later on. The idea of the computational irreducibility is that you cannot explain everything from within. Gödel, you cannot explain the system within itself, because then the part contains it all, and that is a contradiction in terms. The part cannot contain the all, the part. And if you explain the universe, if you are able to understand fully the universe within the universe, then the universe is contained in the whole. Your mind is contained in the whole universe, and it breaks your mind. It's illogical. So you cannot see the whole universe, but you can see that the immutability of the universe beyond time and space means that everything in the universe has already happened, and everything, any single possibility, it's already materialized. It's just that you go through a novel, reading the lines, reading the words, you feel the idea, you feel the flow of the narrative of the history, but the book is out there. You read it or not, the story is out there in the book. But God wants to. What is God doing in the meantime? If it is the universe and all of the possible events that happens and all of the possible instants, what is going to do in the meantime? He's just going to play hide and seek, and every single possibility he's going to embody it. So when we are aware, we are just feeling that it's God looking through your eyes, any kind of possibility, and trying to figure in his mind, how would it be to be you? How will be to be someone else? All of the ideas that he's able to entertain in his mind, in this universal mind that is God, is you embodied as a particular reflection of the God consciousness and particular thing that feels you. There is in Spain Joaquin Sabina, a singer, a composer that makes very original songs, and there is one that sings about a pirate and all the possible life that one can live. You can live, the lyrics are very compelling in Spanish. Probably it makes no sense to do it in English, but he lives things like betting in Las Vegas, or being a sailor, or being even a cigarette in your lips, the woman that he loves to, or a tower in Monte Carlo. Every single life that he sticks to the life of the pirate because it's more romantic. And what if in the vastness, immutable totality of the universe, the mind of God lives through any of these lives, and any of them feels like you being consciousness, and you are just one more life God is entertaining to play with.